What's up, everybody? Alex here from Columbus, and welcome to episode number 18 of What's on Tap, my weekly, bi-weekly, tri-weekly, whenever I have a chance to, weekly recap where I drink a fancy beer and talk about what I've been up to musically this week. So, I got a little mini concert review I want to talk about, a bunch of records I spun this week, but first, we got to get into a beer. Now, here's the thing. I don't know what it's like where you're at, but here in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm sure a lot of the Midwest and other parts of the country, we're in like the middle of a cold front. The time of recording this, it's a Labor Day weekend here in the States, and it is not feeling like Labor Day weekend. It has been fall feeling this whole week. We're talking highs in the mid 70s, lows in the 50s at night. It's been absolutely amazing. And so I'm sure it's going to shoot back up to like the 90s here soon enough again, but I would like to kind of celebrate what we have because this is my favorite time of year, even if it's a fake fall. So I'm going to drink a fall beer, and this one's a biggin. This is a big boy, but so am I, so it's all right. It's Friday night. I'm going to record this. I'm going to head off to a buddy's place because we're doing a little bonfire because it's fall, right? Or we're going to pretend it is. But the beer we're drinking today is from Weyerbacher out of Easton, Pennsylvania. And the beer is Insanity Ale Aged on Oak. That is pretty much the whole description here, other than the fact that it is 13.3% alcohol. 13.3% alcohol. I know nothing about this beer. Weyerbacher, great brewery. They really kind of, to me, they like specialize in like the old school beer. It's like not the bells and whistles or anything like that. It's like, this is like old school, first world type beer stuff. And that's what this is. Again, it is just an ale aged on oak. So I'm going to guess this is going to be, a darker beer, but not stout dark. We're trying to talk like, not even brown ale dark, very, very similar to maybe like a Scotch ale or a wee heavy or something like that. It's aged on oak. That doesn't necessarily mean it's been aged in any bourbon barrels or anything necessarily. Again, I don't know a whole lot about this beer, but, really more than anything, it's going to be a really strong ale. So let's get into it, and then we'll talk about some beer, all right? Or some beer and then some music. A little bit of smoke coming off. Well, that's getting ahead. Googity. All right. Well, there you have it. It looks, pretty much brown ale-ish. On my side, it looks like very, very, very murky iced tea. It certainly looks a much, much darker on camera, what I'm seeing and what you're seeing. But on my side, it really does look like some pretty dirty ass iced tea. Good looking finger or two fingers ahead right there. Off-white tan almost, approaching tan colored head. So a little bit of a darker head. And it just looks like an old school, dirty ass strong ale. So let's get a nose on her. Excuse me. And that's what it smells like, man. This is big time. Exactly what I said. Scotch ale, wee heavy. It is so malty. You're not getting any hops. You are just getting malts for days. Smells sweet. Of course, you're going to have to make it sweet. That's how you're going to get a lot of that alcohol and obviously the balance. But yeah, I mean, it just smells like kind of like, if you walk into a brewery, and a lot of times you get that like grain malty smell. A lot of times that's like the wort part of the brewing process. It's kind of what this smells like. I mean, it just smells like straight beer bread, if you know what I'm talking about. Maybe getting like hints of like some vanilla here and there. Again, not too sweet though. I'm not pulling off any bourbon per se. Of course, with these types of beers, I always get, if you remember those candies, those sugar daddies or sugar babies or whatever they're called. Actually, kind of a hilarious name for a candy for like a bunch of 3-year-olds to be eating is sugar daddies, right? But I definitely get some of that. The toffee, rum-soaked raisins, that type of stuff. Dates, figs, all those dark fruits. But really, it is a malty mess, but in a good way. So let's get into it and then chat some music. 13.3%. Let's see how it goes. Cheers, y'all. Okay. There's the kick. Nice kick of heat on the back, a little bit of warmth going down. Does get that booziness, but again, it's a 13% beer. You're going to get that. It is much sweeter on the palate than it was on the nose. Big time, those sugar daddies and sugar babies that I was talking about. Nice, thick, syrupy mouthfeel. I gotta be careful because if I start drinking this too fast, man, I'm gonna be crashing the fuck out before I go to my buddies. Yeah, it's gonna be sweet. Good bitterness on the back. It's a big beer. I mean, if you're used to sipping on light beers and beers that you can't taste alcohol, this is going to be a tough one. But this is a throw another log on the fire, sit and watch it crackle sort of thing. It's strong. It's big. It's sweet. It's malty. Got them sugar daddies. Sugar, what the fuck it is. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, man. It's aged on oak, and not to get too technical into it, right? But that's the difference between something that's aged in a bourbon barrel versus something that's aged in just oak, right? This could be aged on oak, but did not previously hold bourbon. And so, what are some flavors that you would get from oak, but not necessarily from bourbon? Well, oak, you're still going to get the tannins of the wood. You're going to get that dryness on the back end, which you do get. Maybe hints of vanilla here and there. It's a big, powerful beer, man. Whew. I feel like if I could do like one of those things where I shoot the flame out my mouth. All right. Yeah, 4 caps out of 5, man. That's a good ass beer. I gotta be careful. You be careful too. Okay. Let's jump into some music, some records, man. I am fresh off a beautiful, beautiful concert night with the great Gov't Mule. Believe it or not, this was my first time seeing Gov't Mule. I had tickets to see them here in Columbus. I think it was about 2 years ago now. Had my tickets ready to go. They were doing Dark Side of the Mule. And I ended up getting COVID and was deathly ill. And so I was unable to go. But I am a fan of Gov't Mule. And mostly I'm a huge fan of Warren Haynes. Now, a little bit of backstory here. Warren Haynes, I mean, an absolute beast. That man is a bad mamma jamma. But I actually saw Warren back in 2004-ish, along with Derek Trucks, when they were both playing in the Allman Brothers band. So I was in high school, got a chance to see the Allman Brothers up in Cleveland, Ohio. And, unfortunately at those times, I was 14, I wasn't really into the whole, jam bandy, dueling guitar, slide guitar. I just didn't appreciate it for what it was. And so I still had a good time, but it wasn't my bag when I was that young. But now, it totally is. And so interestingly enough, I'll show what I have of Gov't Mule here in a second. But I wanted to show this record because this is one of my favorite record store day releases over the years. But it's An Evening with the Allman Brothers from 1992. Of course, at this time, they did have Warren Haynes in the band. There he is there. And I love this record a lot. This was on Friday Music, which is a little bit interesting because, you don't trust everything that's on Friday. I'm pretty sure this was a Kevin Gray cut, though, and it just sounds amazing. This era of the Allman Brothers, when Warren was in the band, is brutally good. They obviously went through a big struggle in the 70s and all the stuff going on with Greg and Cher and all that nonsense. But by this time, they were having a resurgence, really just the coming back. A huge revival for the band, and a lot of that was due to the great Warren Haynes absolutely ripping at this time. So this was an incredible record store day release from, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago or so. But absolutely incredible. Now, in terms of actual Gov't Mule stuff that I have, of course, what I have is Dark Side of the Mule. This might have been what really got me into them, just from the whole creativity standpoint. So, this is them doing a whole bunch of obviously Pink Floyd stuff, not just Dark Side, but basically a whole show dedicated to Pink Floyd. And they still do these types of shows as it goes. So this was amazing. And I actually picked this one up last year at some point. This was a record store day release as sort of an extended EP on a record that they had put out. But this is Time of the Signs. This was a record store day EP that, again, was sort of like the extra piece to their record Peace Like a River that came out a couple of years ago. I don't have that record, and quite frankly, the only reason I have this record was because I found it for $5, and I'm like, Gov't Mule for $5? Great. And so there's part of me that's like, man, why am I like gooping my shorts over Gov't Mule? I only own two things, and one of them's like an EP, and the other one's a cover record. Well, the reality is their stuff was not on vinyl or is not on vinyl, especially their early stuff. They were a band that was really happening in the mid to late 90s when they first started. But the other thing is, because they are a band, when I want to listen to fucking Gov't Mule, I want to listen to a live record, man. I want to listen to them ripping and jamming and improving and doing the whole thing. That is what I want to hear. And so it's absolutely no disrespect to their studio stuff. Their studio stuff's amazing. The way they're able to sort of blend, obviously, this like southern rock jam bandy thing, but with like this heavy blues. I mean, it's dirty, it's in your face, it's heavy, it's rocking. It's all the good things that I love about all of the things. That's all I have for Gov't Mule stuff. And whatever I'm going to buy on vinyl, for me, I got to buy the live stuff, man. Like, I want, when I'm listening to the Mule, give me the live show. I'm going to throw in a couple of clips here of Warren just absolute ripping my pants off, and playing some mean guitar while he's at it. So yeah, I'll go ahead and throw these in here, but man, what a show. Just awesome. And it was a perfect night too. I think by showtime, it was 64 degrees, clear night in downtown Columbus, and man, what a scene it was. So yeah, check it out. All right, so now's the part of the show where I just kind of go through some of the music I've been listening to this week. So, there's no real rhyme or reason. A lot of times these are random polls or things I wanted to listen to or something like that, but no real rhyme or reason here. So the first one I am grabbing is In the Dark by the Grateful Dead. So this, speaking of sort of a bit of a revival here, the Grateful Dead were kind of in a weird spot entering the mid to late 80s. At this point, they connected with Clive Davis, past sort of person who was running Columbia Records, but then started Arista Records, which this is on. And he really helped them say, hey, man, like Grateful Dead, you are not irrelevant. You are more than just a jam band on the live circuit. Let's go in there and create a great studio record. And of course, the huge hit that was off of here, I mean, really, it's the only Grateful Dead hit, was Touch of Grey. And what's interesting, and I like the Grateful Dead a lot. I love all the eras of the Grateful Dead, all that type of stuff. I shouldn't love Touch of Grey as much as I do, but damn, I love that song. It's a great song. 1987. For me, the other huge highlight on this record is what closes it off, Black Muddy River. That's an absolutely beautiful song. I always thought they did ballads really well, especially Jerry. So, man, I like this record a lot. This is not like Grateful Dead selling out. This is just a really good commercial latter career Dead record. And, just thinking about just a few years later, they'd be done. So, yeah, really great record. And, Clive Davis at Arista had a lot to do with putting that sort of together. All right, now enters sort of like a weird progressive Canterbury scene. If you're not familiar, the Canterbury scene was a scene in the UK in the late 60s, early to mid 70s mostly, that kind of consisted of a very incestuous community of a lot of different artists and a lot of different bands that were certainly a part of the progressive rock world, but had this very quirky British English jazz sort of component to them. Their stuff is a little bit weird. It's goofy. It's not, it just sounds so different. There's certainly jazzy elements. There's a little bit of avant elements. There's some quirky little pop here and there. But it's just a fascinating sort of progressive rock subgenre of the Canterbury scene. And so I got a handful of records here that I was randomly listening to, and it sort of made sense. And these are weird. These are not like, put on and sing to your mom kind of thing for people who do that. But, the first one is a little bit of a rare record, and that is Angel's Egg from Gong. Gong's a weird one. And this is a weird record. And Gong's a weird band, but this one is up there. Side one is like a lot of kind of weird like noises and spoken word stuff and blah, 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 blah. Side two is a little bit more digestible. There's some weird things going on. You got flute salad, oily way, inner temple, percolations, all this kind of stuff. But you got Steve Hillage on here who's ripping in some parts, and then there's some other stuff that is just so far out there and funky. This is a little bit of an expensive record. It took me a while to track this one down. This is a UK pressing. I think this was 1973, maybe? Yeah, 1973 on Virgin. You can see this. The official name for this is Radio Gnome Invisible Part 2. Angel's Egg by Gong. Very bizarre band, very weird band that went through a number of different changes in sound, but this is kind of part of this really bizarre trilogy of some spacey, quirky, avant out there type of stuff. So yeah, check out Gong if you haven't, if you're into that sort of weird shit. Speaking of weird shit, but a little bit more in the pocket in terms of some jazz fusion, and that's the second record from National Health. This is Of Cues and Cures from 1978. So interestingly enough here, 1978, we're kind of past the heydays of prog. We're certainly past the heydays of the Canterbury scene in the UK. And that's why this is so interesting, is because this is basically a jazz fusion record with a little bit of quirky, beeps and boops here and there. But it really sort of signals the formal closing of that period. I mean, nothing else sounds like this from 1978. So much was going on and was going to come, whether it was punk or disco or all that type of stuff. And so this is an odd record because it doesn't sound like 78. It sounds like 72 or 73, but a great record. Their first record, their self-titled National Health record, is also outstanding. And yeah, this is where it gets interesting because these are really more jazz fusion records than prog records at this point. But, yeah, again, Of Cues and Cures from National Health. This is a 78 original UK, I think, on the very cool Charlie label. Good stuff there, yeah. Of Cues and Cures from National Health. UK. We love that. And speaking of UK presses, and speaking again of Canterbury, this was a band that went through a lot of different sounds as well. They started off very kind of, again, psychedelic, poppy, quirky, weird. Then went into some free jazz stuff, but by this point, they really are a jazz fusion band, and that is Soft Machine's Softs. 1976. This was the record that came out after Bundles, which is one of my absolute favorite. Bundles was the record that had the great Alan Holdsworth playing guitar on it, one of the best in the world. Now, he's not on this record, but you do have John Etheridge on here, who is no slouch himself either. So, yeah, a really great kind of out there jazz fusion record from Soft Machine called Softs, 1976, and this is a UK pressing on Harvest. We love the Harvest label, so there you go. All right, it's enough of the weird, quirky stuff. Let's go a little bit more in the pocket, shall we? I played the debut from the great Jackson Browne, man. Something about Jackson, man, he just gets me going. And I started thinking about, imagine just from the singer-songwriter perspective, starting off your career with Jamaica Say You Will. I mean, imagine doing that. But you also have Song for Adam, a beautiful song. I think about a childhood friend, Dr. My Eyes, Rock Me on the Water, Under the Falling Sky. This is such a great record. I mean, his first, 5 or so records were just absolutely outstanding. None of them are expensive. You're able to buy most of these for $5 to $10, sometimes even less. And yeah, it's great. Of course, this is interesting because so many people call this Saturate Before Using, but that is not the name of the record. A lot of people, it is just simply the self-titled Jackson Browne record. So yeah, what a beautiful record that is. I love it. We'll go a little bit more jazzy here with the man who literally just recreates his style all the time and somehow still does it better than everybody else. But it is later era Miles Davis with Tutu. So this just got released or reissued, I think, several months ago, or maybe it was last year at this point, through Rhino High Fidelity, which, it's a cool record for what it is. It's certainly not my bag when I'm thinking about Miles records. This came out, I think, in the mid to late 80s. like 87, maybe something like that. But he is like firmly in leaning more in like the funk R&B. Like, I'm not gonna call it disco, but it's certainly, this does not sound like Milestones. This doesn't sound like Bitches Brew either. He continuously evolved with the times and what was popular and what was going to sell, in 1986 or 7 or whatever year it was. And so, yeah, not my favorite by any means, but this was a pretty popular record, especially in the, think about the state of jazz in the mid 1980s, right? One of my favorite live records, it's a little bit of a comfort record for me, and that's Peter Gabriel Plays Live. Thinking about this record and how great this live record is, and all the wonderful songs on there, and then you consider this was before So. I'm sitting there thinking, damn, like, we deserve like a Peter Gabriel Plays Live post So, because there's so much great stuff on there too. But yeah, I mean, I'm always just in awe with songs like Family Snapshot, San Jacinto, Biko, he closes it out like he does so many other songs. To me, another highlight, kind of the deep cut on here too, is Humdrum. I love Humdrum. So Peter Gabriel Plays Live. Was this 84 or so? I forget the year, but it was right before So came out. So there's that. Let's talk transition records. This is a record I go back to a lot of times to listen with more open ears, if that makes sense. And that is Genesis, and Then There Were Three. Obviously, the first Genesis record after Steve Hackett left, and so now you're only left with Phil Collins, Mike Rutherford, and Tony Banks. And you see what they can do with it. Obviously, there are still some really great progressive moments on here. Do I like this as much as, The Lamb and Selling England? No, of course not. But, this was certainly a transition period before they went full commercial in the mid 80s. You do have, of course, Snowbound, which is potentially one of the most cheesy songs of all time. And I potentially kind of like it. But then you also had things like Follow You, Follow Me. That was really the first, big hit of, okay, this is where we are going. But you still have Scenes from a Night's Dream. You have Burning Rope, Down and Out. You still have a lot of that sort of classic, quote unquote, Genesis sounding stuff, but you definitely get where they're going after this. So, I think a solid record, even if it doesn't hold up for me as great as those early Genesis records do. Here's a record I kind of forgot. Well, I didn't forget the record, but I wanted to give it another shot. A concept record, maybe with a bit of an asterisk by it, but it's the second record from the Eagles, Desperado. I kind of like the whole conceptual theme here about, exactly what they're sort of going for here, right? Obviously, the huge hit, although I read that Desperado as the song was never actually released as a single. But you still had, Tequila Sunrise is another huge hit off of here. I kind of appreciate how they reprise Desperado, and then Doolin Dalton, I think, is a beautiful song, and so to reprise both those at the end, this is a solid record, man. The thing is with the Eagles, to me, none of their records are perfect. All their records have some really good songs on there, and then some other ones that I'm like, I could leave that one out. So I think this falls right in there too. But Asylum Records, 1973, for Desperado. I gave this a spin because we tragically lost Brent Hines out of nowhere. We're going right into like progressive sludge metal world here with Crack the Sky from Mastodon. Yeah, I mean, Brent Hines left Mastodon, I think last year or earlier this year. And sadly enough, man, it was a pretty brutal breakup, and they were saying some shit about each other, and it is weird. And so then, like, in the heat of all this, he ends up dying at the age of 51 in a motorcycle accident. I mean, just brutal. I am a fan of Mastodon, and this is sort of known as, maybe their progressive masterpiece, if you will. Again, Crack the Sky. This came out in 2009, which is crazy, 15 years ago already. I mean, it's sludgy, it's down-tuned, it's, the vocals are not, when I say progressive metal, it doesn't sound like James LaBrie or Russell Allen or something like that. It's a different type of metal for sure. And it took me a little while to get into it, but I've grown a greater appreciation for Mastodon and all they've been able to do. So always a good time there. Let's see what else we got. Well, we'll close it out with we'll close it out with a mega banger because this is getting to be a long video. Man, I don't know how this record continues to go under the radar. And when under the radar, it's like if someone asked me about it, I'd be like, man, that's one of the best records of all time. And I don't, but every time I play it, I'm like, fuck, how'd you forget about this record? I don't know how else to say it. Rainbow Rising, man. I mean, just incredible. Richie Blackmore, Ryan James Dio. You got Tony Carey on here. You got, of course, Great Cozy Powell, and then Jimmy Bain, who would later join the Dio band. This is just such a great record, man. I mean, I'm not going to go into what's perfect, what's not. The reality is that this record has side B is Stargazer and A Light in the Black. I mean, I don't care if the rest of the shit is filled with the Disco Duck. Man, but of course you open with Terror Woman, and that's amazing. Run with the Wolf, Starstruck is amazing. Even Do You Close Your Eyes to me is kind of like the fluff of it, but it's by no means like a bad song. It's just not as great as everything else. So yeah, I mean, Rainbow Rising, man, what a fucking record. What a band. They would never top this. And I struggle to find a better hard rock 70s record than Rainbow Rising. I don't know if it exists, and if it does, slap me. So, yeah, there you go, people. That's what we listen to. Thanks for sticking around and listening to me yap on about beer and music and all that different stuff. And, maybe fall is around the corner again. I'm going to go and hang out by the fire, have a few beverages, maybe eat some s'mores. And, hope everybody has a great Labor Day weekend. And, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.